Hello, everybody, and welcome to our presentation of The Giver.
By me and Liam.
Now for symbolism. Symbolism is an image that represents something with a deeper meaning.
The book portrayed symbolism better than the movie because in the movie it went through different symbols very quickly. Like, for example, in the movie, the director did not show Joseph playing catch with the apple and seeing how it changed. He just had a bowl of apples in the giver's room and they turned red when he saw them. The book, however, had Jonas see how the apple changed while playing catch, but the book also came back on the concept many times. In the book it states, "But suddenly Jonas had noticed, following the path of the apple through the air with his eyes, that the piece of fruit had, well, this was the part that he couldn't understand. The apple had changed." The book shows the change in the apple in much more detail, so we know that it is important, and we should remember it. But in the movie, it only shows a bowl of apples. It does not show how that the apples are important because they are supposed to show that danger is ahead, and the movie doesn't emphasize on that.
Symbolism. They call her Lily. Lily's name symbolizes purity or innocence. On page 5 it states, "I felt very angry this afternoon. I made my hand into a fist like this." This shows how Lily doesn't know real anger, because as Jonas explains it in the books, she was frustrated. Which means how she doesn't understand what feelings are, so she doesn't know better, which makes her pure and innocent. Although in the movie it doesn't show a lot of Lily, because of the movie's fast pace, they kind of skip over the symbol of Lily's name.
Symbolism. Taylor Swift? Oh no! Rosemary's name symbolizes concentration and memory. Rosemary, the spice, actually helps with concentration and memory, which is why Lois Lowry named her Rosemary. That was one of the reasons. It also helps neutralize harmful particles called free radicals. Thank you, Liam. And the receiver of memory is supposed to neutralize harmful events in the community. On page 141 through 143, it states, "She received well, as you do. She was enthusiastic, so delighted to experience new things. But she was like you, Jonas. She wanted to experience everything. This shows how she was good at receiving memories and was very focused in her work, because the giver said she wanted to experience everything and she received as well as you do." In the movie, it doesn't really show how Rosemary was very focused and good at receiving memories well, because the movie doesn't really show it clearly how Rosemary was able to receive memories or was very focused in her work. Symbolism. It's the tree of life. One thing that the movie had that the book didn't have was the Joshua tree, which symbolized life. In the movie, they show the tree on the border of Elsewhere, which shows how there is no life in the community because the community is being controlled by the government, which makes the citizens have no choices or freedoms. The book doesn't talk about the Joshua tree at all because it was the director's choice to put the tree in the movie.
Symbolism. Meryl, faux life. Another symbol that is used in the movie and not the book is that the chief elder wears white to symbolize that she is cold, and also shows her rank in the government. Most people in the movie wear black or gray, but she wears white because it shows her rank. In the book, it doesn't talk about what the chief elder wears. It only talks about how she acts and thinks. And we can definitely say she is cold for trying to lose Jonas. Allusion. Allusion is a literary device that references a historic, biblical, or political figure. Allusions are always implied, never explicit.
The illusion of Jonas's name is Jonah and the whale, which is about a biblical character named Jonah that tries to run away from a task given from God because he's scared of doing it, because he has to go to a dangerous city and tell them it will be destroyed because of their bad actions. In the book, Jonas has the task of receiving all memories of the world, so he can provide wisdom to the elders who run the community. Throughout the book, Jonas becomes overwhelmed and starts to mourn for his childhood before the selection of the receiver of memories. On page 128 through 129, it states, Jonas to the bench beside the storehouse and sat down, overwhelmed with feelings of loss. His childhood, his friendship, his carefree senses of security, all of these things seemed to be slipping away. With his new heightened feelings, he was overwhelmed by sadness. This shows how Jonas is giving up on being a receiver. He can't take it, just like Jonah from Jonah and the whale, because he thought he couldn't complete the task. And he was overwhelmed and frightened by the task, so he tried to run away from God. In the movie, it doesn't really show how Jonas is overwhelmed or starts to not want to be the receiver, because of the movie's fast-paced, so they rush through it. How he has second thoughts on being the receiver and starts to feel overwhelmed and depressed about being the receiver of memories.
Illusion, the messenger. Gabriel is an allusion to the Archangel Gabriel. Gabriel the Archangel was a messenger from God and delivered messages to the people. In the book, Gabriel receives memories from Jonas, like how Gabriel the Archangel receives messages from God. On page 116, it states, "This time he quite deliberately placed his hand firmly on Gabriel's back and released the rest of his calming day on the lake." This shows how Gabriel is receiving memories, just like Gabriel the angel receives messages from God, like how Jonas has released the memory of a sailboat on a lake to Gabriel to help Gabriel sleep, and the Archangel Gabriel sent the message to Mary from God that she was going to have Jesus. In the movie, there aren't many events where Gabriel receives memories, which make the person who is watching the movie skip over the illusion and not realize there is a connection between Gabriel the angel and Gabriel the baby. Illusion. E.T. go home. An example of an illusion from the movie is when Jonas tries to escape with Gabriel to the border of Elsewhere to free the memories Jonas has and give them back to the community. While they're escaping, Jonas makes a jump onto the motorcycle and has Gabriel in his hands and they fly next to the moon like in the E.T. movie, where E.T. makes the bike fly so him and Elliot can escape. In the book, there is no illusion of E.T. And now for a short video.
Tell me when it's over!
Go, Jace!
Euphemism. A euphemism is a noun and is a more polite way of saying something that might offend someone.
Another example of a euphemism from The Giver is sameness. Sameness is a euphemism for conformity. In the book, on page 84, it talks about how some types of weather were taken away by switching to sameness, and because the weather would slow down transportation and food production. The book states, "Snow made growing food difficult, limiting the agricultural periods, and unpredictable weather made transportation almost impossible at times. It wasn't a practical thing, so it became obsolete when we went to sameness." This is a euphemism of conformity because it shows how the government changed the weather so there would be faster transportation and longer seasons to grow food. In the movie, it didn't show as much examples of sameness than in the book, because in the book it talked about how candles were outlawed because of sameness when the Giver showed Jonas his favorite memory. Euphemism, dumpster baby. An example of a euphemism from The Giver is release. Release in The Giver is a nice way of saying killed or executed. On page 150, it talks about the release of two twins. The doctors, or nurturers, have to weigh the babies and see which baby is heavier. Then they have to release the lighter baby. The book says, "Moved his arms and legs in a jerking motion. Then he went limp, and... He killed it! My father killed it!" This shows how release is a euphemism of killing because the book talks about how one of the babies is killed because one is lighter than the other. In the movie, they do also use the euphemism, but not as much as the book because the movie doesn't talk about other releases. And now for another short video.
Here's twin one. Here's twin two. Then we'd have a problem. Got 10 ounce. Sweet. All right, little guy. Sorry, little guy, but I have to use a vein. And the veins in your arm are too teeny
Euphemism, losing Jonas. Another euphemism used in the movie is when the chief elder tells Asher to lose Jonas when Asher is hunting for Jonas with the drone. Lose in this sentence is a euphemism for to murder or kill, because the chief elder wants Jonas killed because he is disobeying rules and trying to set his memories free. In the book, it doesn't talk about how the chief elder wants Jonas dead. It only talks about how she wants to find him and stop his plans of setting free the memories he acquired from the giver. Ambiguity. Ambiguity means doubtful or uncertainty of meaning, intention, like vague.
An example of something ambiguous from the book is the book's ending. In the book, it talks about how Jonas is doing, how far he was into the plan, and how if he exceeds or not in releasing all his memories to the community. On page 178 through 179, it states, Jonas felt himself losing conscience. With his whole being, willed himself to stay upright atop the sled. He could see lights and recognize them now. He knew they were shining through the windows of rooms. He thought he heard music too, but perhaps it was only an echo. This shows how Lois Lowry is unclear about if Jonas lives and finds shelter or dies and imagines his favorite memories just before his death caused by pneumonia. In the movie, it clearly shows Jonas riding on a sled from one of his received memories and riding down a hill to a cottage and going inside the cottage. This is not an ambiguous ending because it shows what happens to Jonas, and it shows Jonas completing his plan and taking refuge in a small house or cottage.
Ambiguity, the community. Another example of something ambiguous from the book is about what happens to the community after Jonas did or did not succeed in his plan. In the book, it shares no details about what happens to the community. We can only infer if Jonas completed his quest. Then we can think that the community got Jonas's memories. But maybe the plan didn't work even if he got to elsewhere. We still don't know if it worked at all. In addition, if Jonas died, then we can infer the plan did not work, or maybe he did not cross the boundary already and died in elsewhere. Although, in the movie, it shows how when Jonas succeeds in reaching elsewhere, the memories come back to the community, and then color and emotions come back to the community with the memories. So, the ending of the movie is not ambiguous because the movie tells us how the community turns out after Jonas succeeding in setting the memories free. Theme. The theme of the book and movie of The Giver is perfection is impossible. An example in The Giver is they are supposed to live in a utopia, but humans are not made perfectly. Humans will make mistakes, and because of this, humans will make problems. And for example, having a free will and having choices and being able to feel for one another. This demand can lead to many complications like rebellion. For example, in the book Jonas from the Giver, who learns that there is more to life like love and experiences. This now makes the utopia imperfect, which delivers the theme perfection is imperfect or impossible. The book, however, portrays the theme better than the movie because the book shows more of Jonas's problems of living in the utopia, like how he feels being the receiver and what he feels about how the government took away many things like color, emotions, and choices. Even though in the movie it shows a more power-hungry and control-freak government, which also shows how there are flaws in the perfect community, keeps some moving and leaves you a little confused. The book describes the problem in great depth than the movie, like for example on page 130 through 135. It talks about Jonas feeling towards the receiver in the movie. They go very quickly over his feelings and really skip to the ending of The Giver, like when Jonas is trying to release the memories and that the Giver has given him.
Delivering the theme. The book happens to portray the theme clearer than the movie. The book describes the problems in greater depth than the movie. For example, in the text it talks about Jonas's feelings towards being the receiver of memory. In the movie, they go very quickly over his feelings and really skip to the ending of The Giver when Jonas is trying to release all the memories the Giver has given him back to the community. This is also an example of how the book takes its time in explaining each problem Jonas is facing. The movie just explicitly plays out the story, which is supposed to be ambiguous. For example, what happens to the community in the end of the movie. Inferencing reading strategy. The inferencing strategy was more used in the movie than the book. For example, what happens to Jonas's and Fiona's relationship? Does he go back? In the movie, Jonas says to Fiona, "I will come back for you once I release the memories." Or, how does the community go forward with the new memories they received? The director just leaves the chief elder looking into space with Fiona, Jonas's father, the mom, and some community members. Does Asher get in trouble after he loses Jonas in the movie? Asher takes Jonas and drops him into the water and vouches for him, being a good friend. So, what exactly happens to all these things? With the more stuff that happens in the movie, you have to predict more to see what happens in the end and to get a final result. So, there are many more examples you can find in the movie, but these are probably the most important.
The visualization reading strategy. You'd use the visualization reading strategy more in the book than the movie because the book, Lois Lowry, uses imagery to paint a picture in the book, which forces the reader to use the visualization strategy and visualize the scene that Lois Lowry is describing. An example of when you would use imagery is when you are describing an environment or what a character looks like. In the movie, it shows the director's interpretation of the book. For example, what is the environment like, or how the citizens are dressed and look like. But in the book, Lois Lowry gives a vague description of the environment. It gives little detail about the environment so the reader can come up with his or her interpretation of the environment or even the book, because the reader has to use the visualization strategy to put an image in their head of what is happening in the book. So the movie is telling you what the image is like, but the book leaves you clues on what the environment looks like, so you can use the visualization strategy and imagine what's happening in the book.
Which medium was better? Probably the book.
The book had better symbolism because it described each of the symbols much clearer than the movie, because the movie moved at such a fast pace that it didn't take the time to actually focus on the symbols. For example, the apple. In the book, Lois Lowry showed that the apple was a big deal by saying it changed, but in the movie, it only showed a bunch of apples in a bowl for a quick second before they moved on to the next scene. Ambiguity. The book used ambiguity better than the movie because in the movie it tells you everything that happens to Jonas. For example, in the end, where we know Jonas goes on a sled and rides to a house and takes shelter and lives. But in the book, Lois Lowry doesn't talk about what happens to Jonas, like did he die or find refuge. which shows how the movie didn't have an ambiguous ending because it didn't leave the audience with a vague idea of what happened to Jonas. Illusion. The book had better illusions because in the book it showed clues on how Jonas or Gabriel were an illusion of Jonah and the whale, and Gabriel the angel, and how both Jonas from the giver and Jonah from the whale were afraid or overwhelmed by the task they were given.
The book used the euphemisms like release, sameness, and lose because the book used the euphemisms more. Like when the giver talked about sameness and how because of it the government took away snow and hills. Also, it talked a great amount about release, like for example, when the pilot was released because he flew off course with his jet. In addition, the book delivered the theme better than the movie because the book showed more examples of the theme. Perfection is impossible. Because like when Jonas started to think about choices and feelings, he started to rebel and made problems which made the utopia flawed, which showed that perfection is impossible. Furthermore, the book did not make the reader use the visualization strategy more because the book showed the director's interpretation of the book, which takes away the chance to use the visualization strategy. Although in the book, Lois Lowry is very implicit and gives you very few details about the scene, so you can use a visualization strategy and make your own interpretation of the book in your head. That is why the book was better than the movie. The movie did make the reader use the inferencing reading strategy more than the book because the movie shows more and leaves you with more questions to what really happens in the future, like what happens to Fiona and Jonas's relationship.
Thank you for your time! The end!
Miss Crouch, I hope you liked your Crouchers. Thanks. Bye.